Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you cut through all the noise, really. Our goal is simple. Get you the crucial insights, the important stuff, maybe some surprising facts too, so you really understand what's going on in the world. Today, we're digging into the top global headlines from the last 12 hours or so as of August 5th, 2025. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and as we go through these, we'll be looking for those connections, the patterns that link things together, maybe in ways you wouldn't expect, giving you that wider context.
I like that, finding the hidden threads. Good stuff. And speaking of threads, well, let's start with some really dramatic natural events. Earth's been busy. First off, this historic Kamchatka volcano eruption. Krashenikov, I think I'm saying that right?
Sounds about right.
Okay, well, it erupted for the first time in what, roughly 600 years?
600 years, yeah. It's quite something.
Spewing ash 6 kilometers up. But what really stood out to me was this happened after a massive earthquake, magnitude 8.8.
And that's key, isn't it? It's probably not a coincidence.
Yeah.
It shows how these massive geological events can be linked.
Yeah.
An 8.8 quake, that kind of energy can ripple through the Earth's crust and potentially trigger something like this volcanic unrest, even if it seems far away.
Wow. So one event potentially setting off another?
Exactly. And interestingly, after all that seismic activity, those tsunami warnings, for Hawaii, Japan, they were actually lifted.
Oh, really? Why was that?
Well, the forecasts showed minimal wave impact, thankfully, but it highlights that initial trigger, the quake itself, potentially setting off the volcano. It really forces you to see these not just as isolated disasters, but maybe part of a bigger planetary system reacting.
That interconnectedness is something else. Okay, from the earth shaking, let's look at the skies opening up. Over Hong Kong, specifically, they just recorded their heaviest August rains since, wait for it, 1884.
1884.
Over 350 millimeters of rain in just one day.
That's biblical almost. Hard to even imagine.
Right. And it triggered a black rainstorm warning. And get this, it was the fourth warning like that in just 8 days.
The fourth. Okay, that frequency is alarming.
Totally. And the impact was huge. Floods shutting down hospitals, courts, schools, right across the Greater Bay Area.
Yeah, and this really highlights something we're seeing more and more in the news, doesn't it? It's not just that extreme weather events are happening, it's their intensity and, like you said, their frequency. This acceleration, like in Hong Kong, it suggests maybe a systemic shift, not just, a bad week of weather. It's a real challenge for cities everywhere.
A systemic shift.
Yeah.
That's a sobering thought. Okay, let's pivot now from the ground and sky to, well, money. Economic ripples, market movements. Always fascinating to watch how finance reacts. We saw a weak U.S. jobs data come out. But maybe surprisingly, Asian equities actually rose.
Yeah, that's right.
The MSCI Asia-Pacific ex-Japan Index was up 0.6%. Nikkei climbed 0.5%. So weak jobs, but rising stocks. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, it's that classic market logic. Sometimes feels a bit upside down, doesn't it? Basically, the market saw the weak jobs report and immediately thought, okay, the Fed is now more likely to cut interest rates, maybe even multiple times by year-end.
Okay. So bad news for the economy is seen as good news for potential stimulus.
Pretty much. The chances of multiple Fed cuts jumped over 90% after that report. So investors anticipate cheaper borrowing costs, which makes stocks look more attractive.
Right. And what about the dollar?
Well, it had been weak, but it actually rebounded a bit. The euro slipped to about 1.1559 against it. It suggests the market still has some confidence, maybe, that the Fed can step in effectively, even though the data itself wasn't great.
It's such a game of expectations, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's all about what the market thinks will happen next.
Okay, let's look at a company example. Diageo, the beverage giant. They raised their estimate for the hit they'll take from tariffs to $200 million a year. That's a big enough shift.
Huge impact, yeah.
But they still beat their full-year sales expectations. And the result? Shares jumped over 6%. Investors liked their pricing resilience.
And this ties into that broader theme, corporate adaptability even when facing headwinds. But it also connects to challenges nations are facing. Look at South Africa, for instance.
Okay, what's happening there?
Their private sector, measured by the PMI, actually grew slightly for the third month in a row. So some positive signs, right? The PMI edged up to 50.3 in July.
Just above that 50 mark, indicating growth.
Exactly. But they're also dealing with rising costs, wages, fuel, and, crucially, U.S. tariffs are now hitting their exports, too.
So it's that interconnectedness again. Corporate resilience in one place, but national economies feeling the pressure from things like tariffs.
Precisely. You see both adaptability and these very real new economic challenges emerging from global trade stuff.
It really is a complex web,
Yep.
which leads us neatly into geopolitics and trade tensions. Let's start with Slovenia, a pretty significant move from them.
Yes, quite striking.
They announced a total arms embargo on Israel, banning exports, imports, even transit of weapons. And this is linked to growing concerns about the humanitarian situation in the Gaza conflict. We're just reporting this impartially, of course, as for our sources.
And it is a significant diplomatic step. It's, well, direct action by a sovereign nation responding to a humanitarian crisis. Not just words, but a concrete policy change. It reflects that growing international pressure and could potentially signal how other nations might react going forward.
Definitely want to watch. Now, on a different track, but still trade friction, former President Trump. He's renewed threats to raise import tariffs on India, up to 25%.
Right, and the reason cited.
India's purchases of Russian oil.
Ah, okay. Energy, trade, geopolitics, all tangled up.
Exactly. And India's response, they called the threat unjustified and said they defend their national interests. This friction seems to be growing.
It really highlights how complex these disputes are. It's not just about tariffs. It pulls in energy security, national sovereignty, strategic alliances. It's like a multi-dimensional chess game.
A tricky game indeed. But then, amidst all this tension, all this friction, we see something almost, well, contradictory.
What's that?
Chinese companies. They're apparently heading for a record year of listing on U.S. stock exchanges, IPOs.
Really? Despite everything, the tensions, the stricter U.S. rules?
Yep. Nearly 36 Chinese firms are set to debut in the U.S. in 2025. That's almost matching last year's record of 64.
Wow, that is a paradox, isn't it?
It seems like it. What do you make of that?
Well, it just goes to show, I suppose, that economic ties and the pull of capital markets can be incredibly persistent. It raises that question,
Yeah.
about where the practicalities of global business bump up against political rhetoric and regulations. Sometimes it seems the money finds a way.
The money finds a way. Interesting. Okay, so we've covered quite a bit today, haven't we?
We certainly have.
From, volcanoes and earthquakes showing deep earth connections to massive floods highlighting maybe systemic climate shifts. Then into the markets, seeing how weak jobs data can paradoxically boost stocks because of Fed expectations.
Right, that counterintuitive reaction.
And corporate resilience like Diageo, alongside national pressures like in South Africa from tariffs.
And the direct diplomatic actions like Slovenia's embargo.
Yeah, and those complex trade disputes like the U.S.-India situation over Russian oil.
And finishing with that surprising trend of Chinese IPOs in the U.S., despite all the political noise.
It really does show how tangled up everything is.
Yeah.
Events that seem totally separate on the surface, they're often connected.
Exactly. And that's really the value of doing this kind of deep dive, isn't it? Stepping back, looking for those underlying trends, trying to understand the why behind the headlines, seeing those invisible threads, as you called them earlier.
Yeah. So here's a final thought, something for you to maybe chew on. Think about how these different events we talked about, the volcano, the market reacting to jobs data, a new tariff threat, how they might just be ripples. Ripples in a much, much larger global tide. What other connections, maybe unexpected ones, are bubbling up right now? Connections that are going to shape where we all head next.
The great question to keep in mind.
Definitely. Keep exploring, keep connecting those dots yourself, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.